Out in the Gulf of Alaska, the ocean bottom seems to sink. Then heaves upward 50 feet, sending a giant wave towards shore. It tosses the Chena high and then smashes it down where the dock had been. Somehow, Fred Newmere manages to hang on and keep his camera running for part of this incredible trip. The harbor of Valdez is a seething whirlpool. The dock splinters, then disappears into the earth. No one on it will survive. The longshoremen, their children, and the dogs have disappeared. The minutes that follow, the trimmer builds to a tremendous force and sweeps with terrible speed in a 500-mile arc. The great wave sweeps along the shore, striking ships, towns, and cities. In Anchorage, Alaska's largest city, buildings collapse. Streets and homes slip into the earth. Fires break out all over the stricken area. Oil tanks explode, sending flames shooting into the sky. The clock stopped at 5:36, and 15 minutes later there was silence.
You're listening to Alaska Matters Radio. Christopher Story here along with David Webb, bringing you what my mom calls the greatest show on earth. Where were you when the earth shook? That was a crazy ride, but it wasn't that crazy, and especially when my heart, first of all, goes out to the folks, obviously, who lost their homes. What was it? 4 homes burned in Kenai. It's tragic. That's terrible. It's an awful thing. 1 home burnt here in Homer. Coincidentally, that night, I don't know that it was a result of the earthquake. I don't know that, didn't confirm it, but it was near a rental property we own, and that's how I first learned about it. And then, of course, saw on social media some of the photographs of it burning, actually. And so I don't know. It's still a little too coincidental. It probably was as a result of the earth shake. But, so minimal damage all the way around. And then you start looking at the damage that actually took place in around Alaska. And you start watching some of the film and footage and photographs of the devastation in 1964, and it's just absolutely ghastly. It's just absolutely shocking. So just doing a little trivia here this morning, 299-7653 this afternoon. Text, where were you? What happened to you? Laura says, I was in my sleigh bed, which happens to be sitting on moving sliders so that I can easily move it to vacuum underneath. Needless to say, it took me for quite a ride. Wow. And I said back to her, I said it probably felt like a 8+ on the Richter scale when you're on a moving bed that's rolling around your room. Lori Harrington, she's hilarious. She says, I was sound asleep in bed, grabbed my husband's butt and yelled, oh my God, and then we made our way for the door. I said, geez, thanks for the detailed account. That made it all the better. Heather over in Seward happened to be up in Anchorage, said, on the 4th floor of the Anchorage Hilton for a conference, put on some clothes, parentheses, not sleeping with minimal clothing ever again, grabbed family and ran to the staircase and outside. Pets, well, they were left at home. As I said, we were gone. Prepared then, somewhat now. Somewhat now prepared, still working on it, and she wasn't alive in 64. What about you? 299-7653, 299-7653. Would like to know what's going on with you during the earthquake. What happened? What did your pets do? Because that's kind of interesting to me. I hope that my pets had some precognition. I always like to think, well, they've got the skills that kills. They know when somebody's near. They know when danger's lurking. They know when, and they can kind of let you in on some of this stuff, but not my dogs. Not my dogs. Hey, so moving into politics and some political stuff just for a moment. A couple of things. I'm curious as an Alaskan if it means anything to you when you heard this the other day.
This is a Fox News alert. Governor Sarah Palin just took to the stage to endorse Donald Trump. Let's listen.
Makes me respect you even more, that you're here and you're putting your efforts and you're putting reputations, you are putting relationships on the line to do the right thing for this country because you are ready to make America great again. Well, I am here because, like you, I know that it is now or never.
Well, what do you think? Did that do anything for you? Did the Sarah Palin speech / endorsement do anything as an Alaskan? Do you think that did it change your mind? Did it affirm for you, yeah, Donald Trump's my guy, or yeah, Donald Trump ain't my guy, I'm definitely behind Ted Cruz? Now remember, Senator Ted Cruz basically said that it was the Sarah Palin endorsement that garnered his victory in Texas. Was that 2010? It was either 2010 or 2012, I forget. Nevertheless, his political career started, well, it didn't start, but he basically said he gives all the credit to Sarah Palin for that. So, I don't know. This might push Trump over the top, maybe, or does it hold him down? Your opinion, 299-7653. Feel free to weigh in on that. 299-7653. It's time now for your Blackwater Bend Espresso Alaskan Mind Bender. That's right. Blackwater means coffee. You know that. We've discussed it. But Blackwater Bend means gourmet coffee. Blackwater Bend Espresso. I really mean that. In fact, it's time for a little Blackwater Bend Espresso timeout. By the way, Dave, my mom sent me a picture here a moment ago through the cellular device. I haven't looked at it yet. I am a little worried that it's a picture of my brother on the train not wearing powder blue shorty shorts. So maybe the evidence is forthcoming. I don't know. I do not know. We're about to find out. But back to our Blackwater Bend Espresso Alaskan Mindbender question. When good won't do, get gourmet brew at Blackwater Bend Espresso, not your average drip. Okay, I've thrown in all the slogans, but the honest to God's truth is it is awesome coffee, and I want you to get out there for free. Here's how you do it. Answer this question. I tried this question out last night. I had a dinner party. My folks were there. My aunt and uncle were there, Don Blackwell, and I asked Don and Dad and my father-in-law, Ray Dawson. I asked all three of them if they knew who I have to take that back. I think my father-in-law had gotten up for seconds, so I don't think he was in the room. I think he'd gone back and was getting fourth meal. Anyway, and so I asked Don and Uncle Don and my dad, who's the richest man in Alaska? And honestly, they didn't know. I didn't know until I read the Forbes article here the other day. I did not know it either. I presumed it was a Gottstein or a Hickel or something like that. I just presumed that, and I don't know why. Maybe because they're a more notable, wealthy family, or a Becker, you know what I mean, like a radio media magnates, people like that, of that ilk. But as it turns out, the richest man in Alaska's name is Bob Gillum. What industry did Bob make his money in? That's the trivia question today. That's the mind bender, the Alaskan mind bender. In what industry did the richest man in Alaska, Bob Gillum, garner his money? Was he in the A, tire business, B, oiled field services business, or C, financial services? Text your answer right now at 299-7653, 299-7653. Enter to win. Text your name and answer. Richest man in Alaska, Bob Gillum. What industry did he make his money? Tires, oil field service, or financial services? I'll tell you, he's worth $320 million, according to Forbes. He's the richest man in Alaska. Interesting, his father, Byron Gillum, an Anchorage businessman, started in the late 1950s, opened the fabled Fireweed Lane liquor store called Cut Rate Kid, known for its bargain prices. As the story goes, he was driving on a California freeway at night when he glimpsed a lit-up windmill, found it beautiful, and decided to construct one of his own. So you remember when Chilkoot Charlie's, I don't know if they actually made the deal or not. I'll find out. But remember, they've had that windmill down there, the big, tall, white windmill for the longest time. Well, Bob Gillum and his family wanted to acquire that from the owner, Mike Gordon, and send it over to Iliamna, where they have a big lodge. So I thought that was interesting. I found Bob Gillum interesting enough that I actually made contact with his firm and was, put through, dispatched immediately to legal, which is fine. I understand. You're the richest man in Alaska. You're worth $320 million. You're bound to get a lot of phone calls. So I called him on behalf of you and I said, look, I talked to his legal department. I said, I'm interested in Bob Gillum. I'd love to talk to him. Love to talk to him about how he became the richest man in Alaska. What's his backstory? What's his life story? What advice does he have for you and I as we build our businesses and seek maybe to become the richest person in Alaska, or maybe just to be the most content? And is he content? Is he happy? Is he still in love with his business? Does he wake up every day inspired? All these kinds of questions come to mind. And I hit it off with his legal guy, and he said, look, I promise you this. I will talk to Bob this week and get back to you. And he gave me his direct number. And so I'm confident I'm going to be bringing the voice of Bob Gillum to you, the richest man in Alaska. The question on the table, though, is how did he make his money? In what industry? Tires, oil field services, or financial services? 299-7653. We know his father made his money in shelling that firewater. Arkansas, by the way, Jim Walton is the richest man in Arkansas, worth $33.7 billion. Jim Walton's the youngest son of Walmart founder Sam Walton, with annual revenues of $482 billion. The super chain is by far the world's largest retailer. It's no coincidence that I'm telling you about the Walton family, because later in the program, I'm going to be doing a segment called Built to Last. I found this book locally, as a matter of fact. I found it at the little Old Inlet Bookshop, Andy's Bookshop down on Main Street. And I found this book. I just wandered through, and within minutes found the book Built to Last by Jim Collins. And it's a book I'd actually been looking for. So it was really serendipitous that I found it. Pretty amazing that I just found it there. I had no clue I was going to find that in an Old Inlet Bookshop and rare books and used books. Anyway, had no clue. Love it. Going to be talking to you about how can we apply these principles from Built to Last to maybe creating a state of economy, a state of awareness, a state of consciousness here in Alaska that can surpass any oil prices, any fall in one industry or one sector, such that we can brace ourselves for a $7, $2 or no dollar a barrel oil and still survive. I know it's a global shift of thinking, and I'm not talking about turning to the federal teat either. I've been there, done that. It's going to run dry at some point if it hasn't already. All right, I'll throw this out one more time. The richest man in Alaska, Bob Gillum. What industry did Bob make his money in? Tires, oil field service, or financial services? 299-7653. The TBC Radio Word of the Week straight ahead here on Alaska Matters.
It was just one of them beautiful days.
More time you hear these seagulls all the time, you know. But there was none that day.
It was spooky quiet.
I looked down and there was a box of 22 shells, and I said, wow. I reached down and picked those up, and I said, man, this is going to be my lucky day.
We were just about ready to make the set when we felt this tapping vibration in the bottom of the skiff.
And all we heard this rolling rumble.
We didn't know what it was, because it was severe.
And it started rolling. And there was just like that first.
You got to remember, this is during the Cold War. My immediate thoughts were they nuked Anchorage.
It was just awesome.
All hell broke loose, and the ground started rocking and rolling. And my little buddy told me, earthquake, run.
So we started running.
You're listening to Alaska Matters Radio. What an amazing event. Were you there in 1964? Wow, well, you were there. I know you were there, just 2 days ago during the 7.1 quake on Sunday. What was your experience like? 299-7653, collecting those thoughts, and we'll read them before the end of the program. Pretty amazing. There's just a wide disparity, such a huge gap between the 64 quake and what we experienced on Sunday, and yet a very narrow gap between on the Richter scale, 7.1 compared to 9.2? I've got a whole fact sheet. Why am I guessing? I've got a whole fact sheet right here. 8.5 initially, then upgraded to 9.2. 131 people killed during the 1964 earthquake. 119 died in tsunamis. Actually, in Japanese, it's pronounced tsunami, so you do pronounce the T. So if you hear me say Patarmagan or anything like that, hold your criticisms, would you? Because I am attempting to be erudite in my approach towards language. Most were killed by tsunamis triggered by underwater landslides, not by the earthquake-induced tsunami. In Chaniga, 25 of the 76 villagers drowned. The only building that survived the wave impact was a schoolhouse built 100 feet above sea level. Several towns and villages were moved to safer grounds later, including Seward, Valdez. I've always called it Valdez. I was so relieved to hear the reporter referring to it as such. So those of you that have mocked me, those of you that have been merciless in your criticism of my referring to the port of Valdez, take that. So yes, the port of Valdez. Tiffany and I, 2 years ago, the NRA brought us over there and did a banquet over there for the NRA, and we took a cruise on the fast ferries, and we went in at one point to Valdez before we went back over to, I think, Whittier. Yeah, it would have been Whittier was the final stop. And it was really beautiful and everything. And it's so amazing to think that we were docked up there at the Port of Valdez where what was the name of the ship? Does anybody remember the name of the ship that pulled in was it the China? I think it might have been the China. Anyway, the big ship that had pulled in was offloading cargo and everything. And it just, it sucked it into an underwater chasm, and then of course spit it back out and up into the town. Just amazing to think about it. The energy of a magnitude 5 earthquake is like snapping a single spaghetti strand. 9.2 earthquake releases enough energy to snap 800,000 spaghetti strands. That means nothing to me. The damage totaled about $300 million in 1964. Today's dollars, what is that? $2.3 billion. Wow. Absolutely. Wow. Amazing. And a lot of fun facts. I thought it would be interesting. So if you were in Alaska, my mom was out at college, but my aunt was here. And of course, my grandparents were here during the 64 earthquake. But my dad had not made it here yet. So just listening to their stories and talk about where they were and everything, it's fascinating. But what else happened in 1964? It was an incredible year. And it made me think, I wonder if there are years are there just years where more happens? I don't even know how to describe it, but I don't know astrology or anything like that. But I just wonder, are there these certain years in time where so much good and bad, so many interesting things are happening at once that it's kismet, or it's just there's some sort of an alignment that maybe we don't understand. And so I started looking at just interesting things from 1964, and I don't know, maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong, but we'll talk about that. I've got a whole list of stuff that took place that year, and I am just nowhere near old enough to remember. Nowhere at all old enough to remember. I wasn't even born yet. All right, it's time for Today in History, brought to you by the Anchor River Inn, online, anchorriverinn.com. Today in History, Jesse Klutz and family for more than 50 years have been making Anchor Point the heartbeat of Anchor, making the Anchor River Inn the heartbeat of Anchor Point, and really maybe the heartbeat of the peninsula. Dave and Melanie Webb took a staycation here a couple years ago. I love to tell you the story because out of their entire trip around Alaska, their best memories, the best meal, the best time they had eating together was at the Anchor River Inn, 16 miles from where they live. I love that. That's awesome. AnchorRiverInn.com, and you can look at the Anchor Camp. Today in history, I want to say happy birthday to General Douglas MacArthur, born in 1880. That's terrific. Also, India proclaimed itself in 1950 a republic. Michigan became the 26th state in 1837. Then in 1861, Louisiana seceded from the Union. How dare they? 1925, it's Paul Newman's birthday, born in Cleveland, Ohio. Also, today's the day that Nelson A. Rockefeller died at age 70, former vice president. That was in 1979. And who could forget this? This was such an important day in history, we decided we better air some tape regarding Hillary Rodham Clinton testifying. Here she is in a press conference discussing the testimony about what? Whitewater.
The PV brokerage company, which reported a loss, and I had no year-end statement from either Clayton or the company called Ackley. So I think what happened is we bundled all of the documents we had, because I took all of the reports that I had, gave them to the accountant. And I believe that in the absence of a year-end statement, the accountant and my husband and I missed the fact that we had actually made some money in the Ackley account.
You didn't remember the profit?
No, I did not remember that profit.
You can't remember turning $10,000 into $100,000. Yeah, Houston, we've got a problem. All right, there's Today in History, brought to you by the Anchor River Inn. When we return from our top of the news check-in, TBC Radio Word of the Week, we'll continue our Blackwater Bend Espresso Alaskan Mindbender. Remember, the question was, the richest man in Alaska is Bob Gillum, worth about $320 million, according to Forbes. What industry did Bob make his money? Tires, oil field services, or financial services? And just quickly reviewing the text messages, it looks like everybody is getting it right. And I don't know if it's a pure guess. Everybody knew of Bob but me in Alaska in this audience, or we're using Google. I don't know or care. It's fun either way. 299-7653. Today in history, Phantom of the Opera also opened up with this tune, huh? Who could forget this? The longest running play or Broadway production in history. Don't go anywhere. Much more to come on Alaska Matters Radio.
That's a good one. Man, everything's moving. Hey, that's an earthquake for sure. Woo! Man, I'm telling you, I've never lived through anything like this before in my life. And it hasn't even shown signs of stopping yet either. Today is Friday, March the 27th, 1964. Man, I'm telling you, that's the worst thing I've ever lived through. I'm telling you, I hope I don't live through one of those things again.
I feel the earth move under my feet. I feel the sky tumbling down.
And you're listening to Alaska Matters Radio. I'm Christopher Story, your host for great adventures in this last frontier. Alaska Matters, and so do you. David Webb's your engineer and producer back up at the mothership of KPEN FM 102. We're brought to you in part by The Wagon Wheel. Just got a word from Steve this morning, owner of The Wagon Wheel. He said, hey, Chris, tell everybody about them eggs. Because, for a while, they weren't really having enough of those farm, fresh, cage-free eggs that are, huge. They're local. And they were running out. And he said, you know what? We've got an additional supplier. Spread the word. Get out there to Wagon Wheel on Ocean Drive and pick you up some of them delicious, huge Donald Trump-size eggs. Now, wait a minute. That could actually be a problem. Let's not associate. He didn't ask me to do that. That was totally, believe it or not, off the top of my head. David Webb's your engineer and producer, back up at the mothership. We're online on topoftheworldradio.com. On topoftheworldradio.com, you can communicate to me during the program, after, before, whenever, 299-7653 with a text message, or feel free to email alaskamattersradio@gmail.com. alaskamattersradio@gmail.com. Couple things we're asking you today. Where were you during the little shaker we had on Sunday morning? Well, Ina says, I was awake and heard it coming. See, I'm telling you, I think Ina and I are in the same boat. I heard it coming, but I was asleep. As the tremors started, and I realized that it was more than just a little shaker, I woke up my husband. We headed for the door with flashbacks of 1964, which both of us remember very, very well. One dog wasn't upset at all. The other one in a blind panic to get outside. Wow. Later that day, I wonder what's the difference? What's going through their minds? Interesting. Dogs are fascinating to me, more so than cats. Cats, I don't understand. When we went to the barn to feed the livestock, we saw where the cows had been scared and ran out of the barn. One was outside the pen. He had ran through the fence. Horses were just glad to see us. I guess the sequel to this is the question, where were you in 1964, and what do you remember? Yeah, exactly. I would like to know. It sounds like, I know you and Spec both lived through it. Tell us, won't you? 299-7653. 299-7653. As promised, we've got our TBC Radio Word of the Week coming up, and don't forget, we still have the Blackwater Bend Espresso Alaskan Mindbender question hanging out there, and Built to Last. We're going to talk about how maybe you and I have the answer through this book. It's a book on business, but I thought, how can we apply that to the situation we're in right now, economically speaking? Here's some interesting things that happened in 1964. After completing what would have been the final year of JFK's first term, President Johnson was reelected in a landslide over Barry Goldwater. President Johnson declared war on poverty. War on poverty. It's underway still. You know what I would love to have seen, and I understand why Johnson did that. It was an homage to what President Kennedy had started, and he had wanted to introduce this war on poverty himself, and obviously his life cut short that same year. Anyway, it's just interesting that a war on poverty mindset, imagine where we'd be today. If instead of declaring a war on an inanimate result, how about affect the cause and have a war on poverty mindset? Interesting. The 24th Amendment to the Constitution was adopted, ensuring fair voting practices. Investigating the Kennedy assassination, the Warren Commission determined, Oswald acted alone. There was no third shooter. There was no grassy knoll. Soviet leader Khrushchev falls from power, ultimately replaced by Leonid Brezhnev. Anchorage, Alaska, hit by a massive earthquake. We've been talking about that throughout the show. Teamsters leader Jimmy Hoffa was convicted of fraud, conspiracy, and jury tampering. Well, that's not the union I worked for. See, I was a Teamster, and I never remember any of that. Space probe Mariner 4. Did you know this? The Mariner 4 flew by Mars, transmitting pictures of the planet's surface back to Earth. I did not realize in 1964 we had already sent a probe out to Mars. I found that fascinating. The world's longest suspension bridge, the Verrazano Narrows Bridge, was built in New York, opened up. The first lung transplant ever. That's huge. World Series winner. Nobody cares about the sports, do they? Oh, they do? Okay. St. Louis over New York Yankees 4-3. Olympics were held in Tokyo. Cassius Clay, that's right, Muhammad Ali defeated Sonny Liston to become the heavyweight boxing champion. The movies that year, Lord of the Flies, A Hard Day's Night, My Fair Lady, Goldfinger. Seen that one. That's all I've seen out of this list, except Mary Poppins. I think I saw part of Mary Poppins. I've never, thanks to Dick Van Dyke's ill-suited cast in that role. It's terrible. His awful accent. Awful. Mary Poppins, I could never watch it when I was young, and when our kids were young, I would just it was, as Ralph Crane said earlier of Sarah Palin's voice, like nails on a chalkboard. Yeah, Ralph, I saw the text. I Want to Hold Your Hand was a top song, along with Hello, Dolly. She Loves You, Can't Buy Me Love, Do-Wah Diddy. They just don't name songs like this anymore. Oh, Pretty Woman, Roy Orbison. Baby Love, My Guy. TV shows, The Munsters you were watching. The Virginian, never heard of it. Daniel Boone, I heard of it. Outer Limits, love it. Gilligan's Island, fantastic. Man from U.N.C.L.E., huh? Man from U.N.C.L.E. Flipper, Dr. Kildare, Voyage of the Bottom of the Sea. Interesting. A few more facts. We'll get into that. Don't forget, we've got a Blackwater Bend Espresso Alaskan Mindbender question hanging out there. The richest man, Bob Gillum, not in the world, mind you, just in the state. The richest man in the state. It's an impressive, according to Forbes magazine, collection of dollars he's put together, some 320 million of them. Well, how did he do it? In tires, oil services, or financial services? 299-7653. 299-7653. It's time now for your TBC Radio Word of the Week. Now, TBC Radio, I've told you before, the original social media. You want to talk to your customers in your backyard, just your customers, and say Seward or Homer or Delta Junction or Kodiak or Soldotna. You want to talk to just them folk? Well, then what you do is you call Josiah, and he'll put a package together for you. He'll target the customers right there in your backyard. 803-9424. 803-9424 TBC Radio. Put your small business on the big radio with TBC Radio. I got a new phone number. I got to get it memorized now. 803-9424. It gets you right to Josiah. Cut right to the main guy. 803-9424. All right, the word of the week, narcissism. That's right, narcissism. I don't know. It just seems to fit when you've got a political presidential race coming up, right? Well, we're in the midst of it. Narcissism, the pursuit of gratification from vanity or egotistic admiration of one's own attributes. The term originated from Greek mythology, where the young Narcissus fell in love with his own image reflected in a pool of water. We'll use it in a sentence now.
Strong is narcissism with this one.
Well, I am here because, like you, I know that it is now or never. I'm in it to win it because we believe in America and we love our freedom.
Yes, we do. There it is. Narcissism. Use it in a sentence today. Impress your friends and family everywhere. I'm going to get grief over that. I know I will, and that's okay. You're welcome to give me grief at 907-299-7653. Ralph was the only one who answered, I believe, when I threw it out there earlier. I haven't heard anybody but Ralph respond to the question. Did Sarah Palin's endorsement of Donald Trump do anything for you? Good, bad, or indifferent? I don't care. I don't have a dog in that fight. Did it make you think, yeah, I like Donald more? Or did you say, oh, well, now I really got to give some consideration to this whole thing? I don't know. Just curious. When we come back, we'll be talking about built to last. How can we I take that back. How can we preserve what was put before us by our founding fathers? How can we preserve that system, that way of life, and how can we preserve it no matter the geopolitical or economic state of affairs around the world. Plus, 30 sentences that might make it just one-line sentences, very, very simple. They might help you live a happier life. All that and more coming up here on Alaska Matters Radio. Where were you and what were you wearing? That seems to be a topic here on Alaska Matters Radio. Where were you during the big earthquake on Sunday night? Well, let's see here. One respondent says, was in bed when it woke me up. My dog, which was supposed to alert me of pending danger, slept through the whole thing. I'm with you. I am with you. I'm right there with you. Same thing happened to me. Mary says, woke up and started praying, please stop. Yeah. I mean, that's it did. That's the thing about this earthquake. It gave you a lot of time. Ralph says, agree with Laura. No, it's Laura. It's Lara. And it's definitely Laura, Ralph. The seismic events make one question, the wisdom of sleeping in the nude. Oh, now, wait a minute. Ralph. I don't hear that in Laura's statement. Come on. Let's see here. Yeah, that's funny. A lot of you responding to the question, but it's not too late for you. If you think you know how Bob Gillam made his money, text it in right now. Now, Built to Last is a great book. As I told you, I found this book earlier. I found it on Saturday night. I think it was Saturday night. Went into the old Inlet bookshop, and there it was in a big old hardback. Listen to that. I love books, by the way. Have I told you that? Have I told you that I love books? Oh, by the way, we're putting together a nice prize package for Chris Platter, who wrote In My Room, that short story that he shared with us last week. And so I've got the Power of Positive Thinking here on my desk for him, and we've got a nice gift card for AJ's Old Town Steakhouse, and be getting that to him here in the next day or so. So that was a terrific short story available on our website on topoftheworldradio.com. If you missed it, you can go and listen to Chris Platter's short story, and he was our short story winner. So Jim Collins' book, Built to Last. By the way, I want to go over this first. So this is in the book, and it's just sort of a factoidal, interesting thing. So these companies you and I know, these are household names. These are companies that you're totally aware of, and only one or two of them will you be aware of a CEO or a founder of the company or whatnot, but they're all still around. So even if you don't remember the founder or per se the CEO that led the company for 20 years or 15 years or whatever, it's fascinating. So listen to this and when their companies were started. So Citicorp was started in 1812. Procter & Gamble, 1837. Philip Morris, 1847. By the way, did you know Philip Morris was a London company? I did not. They were a tobacco shop in London. I had no clue. 1850, American Express. Johnson & Johnson, founded in 1886. Merck, drug manufacturer, 1891. General Electric, 1892. Nordstrom, 1901. 3M, 1902. Failed mining company, by the way. Can you imagine how many millions, maybe billions of dollars at this point they've made on sticky notes? Unbelievable. Ford, 1903. IBM, 1911. Boeing, 1915. Oh, Boeing, by the way, was going in a bad way. Their plane was not taking off, and they were having some serious trouble. Boeing decided to divert their attention from making planes for a short time and decided to make furniture, and then went back to planes. Walt Disney, 1923. Marriott, 1927. Motorola, 1928. Wait a minute. They had cell phones in 1928. Hewlett-Packard, 1938. Sony, 1945. By the way, Sony failed and flapped and floundered for years shortly after their company went into existence. Walmart, 1945. Yeah, Walmart, 1945. Was really, I don't think so. I think that's a mistake. Sam Walton had stores. He had thrift shops. They were Ben Franklin stores. He had a couple of variety novelty type stores, and one of them was a Ben Franklin franchise. Between 1945 and 1963, while he was building that enterprise, he then founded what you and I know as Walmart in 1963. So a little disparity. I'll take that up with the author, Jim Collins, next we meet. We'll probably do a Google Hangout or something when he hears that I'm talking about him. I think that's what's going to happen. All right, so Built to Last, the book. I want to read from Sam Walton's book real quick. It was called Made in America. He wrote it, probably had somebody help him write it. It's not the point. The point is, this is his memoir. He writes, what nobody realized, including a few of my own managers at the time, was that we were really trying from the beginning to become the very best operators, the most professional managers that we could. There's no question that I have a personality of a promoter. Sound like Donald Trump? But underneath that personality, I have always had the soul of an operator, somebody who wants to make things work well. Great again? Then better, then the best they possibly can be. Sam Walton continues, I was never in anything for the short haul. I always wanted to build as fine a retailing organization as I could. And I said organization on purpose because Sam Walton never would have said organization. Never would have put that erudite inflection on it. You and I both know that. Isn't that fascinating? So you think about that list of companies we read from, Sam Walton's being the newest in 1945. It's still around. And what does Sam say? Yes, I'm a promoter. Yes, I'm sort of a gregarious, outgoing front man. But ultimately, his heart was in building something that would last beyond his life. And has he? Oh, yes, he has. In fact, the richest man in Arkansas to this day is his offspring, his grandson. Or his son, actually, not grandson. They're probably second, third, fourth richest people there. So that's just proof is in the pudding that he wanted, Sam Walton wanted to build something that would outlast him. And that's exactly what our founding fathers intended when they wrote, "We the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America." The Alaska Constitution reads, many, many years later, 1959, it would be finally... we'd be a state, but the Constitution began in 1956 with the convention, and they wrote, "We, the people of Alaska, grateful to God and to those who founded our nation and pioneered this great land, in order to secure and transmit to succeeding generations our heritage of political, civil, and religious liberty within the Union of States, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the state of Alaska." In these words are the directive for something that can last. It isn't about Governor Walker. It isn't about Governor Hickel before him and Hammond before him and Governor Parnell not that long ago or Governor Palin. It isn't about these individuals. It is not about Hillary Clinton, if she's your next president, or Donald J. Trump, or Barack Hussein Obama, or George Walker Bush, or George Herbert Walker Bush, or Ronald Reagan. Moment of silence. It isn't about the man. It isn't about the individual. And Ronald Reagan would have been the first to tell you that. Well, George Washington was the first to tell you that, which is why he avoided the kingdom, the idea that he would become the leader. And reluctantly, he came to serve in his first 4 years as America's first president, very reluctantly. I think that there's something here. I think in the idea of building an institution, building a company, building a life, building a way of life, building a government that is of and for and by the people is so much stronger. And in what can you and I do to influence the leaders that we have right now, the leaders that are wishing to go to Juneau, the leaders that are wishing to go to Washington, D.C., and represent you and me? How can we influence them to say it isn't about the now, it isn't about... I'll tell you something. This was very sad. Very sad. I heard Governor Walker's State of the Union address, and it was just prior to the State of the Union address, I think it was APRN, had an interview or sort of a man on the street, somebody with a microphone, asking people in attendance, what were they looking for? You know what they said? Each and every one of them, now mind you, this is Juneau, so they were probably all sent there by their organizations to lobby and to request that their pet project not get cut. We've been flat funded. We can't make it. We need this. The villages need this. The rural communities need this. We all are going there saying what we need now. What if we actually sent our elected delegates there to say, what are we going to need to do today to ensure that we'll be here 10 years, 20 years, 30 years from now, that our posterity will not have suffered for our lack of vision to build something that is going to last longer than you, what would it take? I mean, what? I don't know. I'm saying that I think turning to the concept of built to last, if a company can stick around for 150 years, and you don't even know who the founder was, Citicorp, who was the founder? Don't know. Doesn't matter, does it? The institution that he built is what matters, and that's what we need in Juneau right now. Chris Story here along with David Webb. When we come back, I'll give you a few sentences that will, I guarantee, give you a happier life here on Alaska Matters Radio. Bum, 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 bum. I mean, is there really a way to make a sentence help you live better? Well, this is what I thought was interesting. It's not the sentence. I think it's the idea behind. Have you ever done improv? Improv is the hardest thing that looks easy to do. Improv is really, really difficult, but to make it look easy. In other words, when you see somebody doing it and you can see what's happening, it's like, oh, that's really rough. But when it's done right, it looks so easy, which is what makes everybody think they can do it. I saw this article posted earlier, and I just thought I would share just a few lines from it because it really applies to everybody, not just people that practice improv or the art of improv. By the way, you're listening to Alaska Matters Radio. Chris Story here drinking some Blackwater Burn Espresso, along with David Webb, back up at the mothership of KPEN FM 102. By the way, if you're interested in buying rental property, tune in to Thursday's show. We have a whole rental section brought to you by BayRealtyAlaska.com. Gina at Bay Realty does property management extraordinaire. I'm going to be talking all about investment property on Thursday. Radio Realty, do not miss it. You got to hear it. All right. One sentence improv lessons anybody can practice to live a happier life. Number one, the most important thing is to be truthful. 2, vulnerability makes you strong, not weak. Just don't cry, because I don't like men that cry. I don't like men that cry. I mean, well, a little bit, okay, but not so much, all right? He cries. Glenn Beck cries all the time. You know, Glenn Beck endorsed Ted Cruz. Donald Trump has now said that Glenn Beck's a crybaby. Listen to the person in front of you instead of thinking about what you're going to say next. That's good advice. Say what you feel. Mean what you say. Nothing is as infectious as watching joyful people doing what they love. When you make others look good, you look good. Go after that which scares you the most. It's your heart trying to tell you something. Let's leave it at that. Go after that which scares you the most. It's your heart trying to tell you something. That is, leave it at that. I'm going to underline that. I'm doing it on top of the world about that. I promise you. I'm going to do that. I'm going to leave it right there. But when you are scared, when you're afraid, when you're thinking, oh, I don't know if I should, I'm telling you, you should. Unless it's violent or going to harm other people. You know what I'm talking about, or yourself. Do I have to explain that? No, I don't think so. It's time now for On Top of the World Radio, brought to you by Napa Auto Parts in Homer. I'm Chris Story from OnTopOfTheWorldRadio.com. Let's talk about the tyranny of ore.
The tyranny of ore.
No. It's not like that. Jim Collins talks about the tyranny of ore in his book, Built to Last. See, you can have this or that. You can make money or become an artist. You can create an amazing company, or you can have a family and a life. You can live your dreams, or you can be sensible. How can you defeat the tyranny of ore? Apply the genius of and. The genius of and is that you really can have both. You can be rich and generous. You can live in the now and on top of the world. Begin your life each and every day with the and in mind. I'm Chris Story, on Top of the World. And that's it. You can have it all. And that's what I would send the message down to Juneau as well. And not to say that we can have it all, like, in other words, you can have your cake and eat it too. We're going to have to make some sacrifices, but it's not if, this, or that. It can be a different combination. We have to ask the right questions. And I'm getting some pushback from people, by the way. And I love it when you push back. I really do like that. I don't mind it at all. It doesn't bother me. Do I cry later? Sure. But that's just me showing vulnerability. Ian's chastised me that it's actually not Bob, it's Robert Gillum. Ian, you're not alone in that. Other people are telling me the same thing. And so, but when you know him, I guess is the difference, is that I know Bob. And I shouldn't have presumed to use our pet names for each other here on the radio. I should have gone with Robert. You're absolutely right. And by the way, Ian, you are one of our at-random winners along with Faith. Both of you are getting coffee cards at Blackwater Bend Espresso, because they care about you. Alaska matters, and so do you. I just appreciate that so much. It's kind of funny. Somebody else put in a comment here that they're at another job. They're at their other job today working for, so they can make money for people who don't. Awesome. You guys are great. Thank you so much, everybody, for sharing your thoughts where you were. Nobody responded to the Sarah Palin thing, so I'm guessing that there's minimal influence. Either you don't care, or there's just minimal influence left in Alaska for Sister Sarah. That's all I can presume. Go to our website, connect with us on topoftheworldradio.com. On topoftheworldradio.com. I'm Chris Story. For Dave Webb, myself, everybody here, thank you for coming back every Tuesday. It really does just, this is one of the highlights of my week, obviously, Thursday being the other. I do enjoy doing the On Top of the World radios. I hope you appreciate them, and if you like them and you want to continue to hear them maybe in your off hours, on topoftheworldradio.com, there's 214 posted as of today. 214, those little bad boys. That's a lot of minutes. You put yourself to sleep with that. I'm Chris Story, wishing you a great day in the great land. Alaska matters, and so do you. We'll see you next Tuesday.